Unlike in the past, when labor was primarily physical, the modern workforce falls into two broad categories, a shift that emerged post-industrial revolution.
Before industrialization, most work was either agricultural or based on craftsmanship, with survival hinging on manual labor. The rise of factories changed that dynamic by emphasizing specialized skills and education over brute strength. Suddenly, it wasn't about who could run the biggest farm, it was about who could perform the most in-demand specialized tasks. Eventually, upper-class jobs emerged in offices and corporate settings, roles in management, finance, law, healthcare, and other fields that demanded a high level of education. At the same time, middle-class jobs evolved around skilled trades, industrial labor, and technical work that kept factories and infrastructure running smoothly, like construction, plumbing, or electrical work. As automation began to replace many of the factory-based roles, a lower-class segment was highlighted. Jobs in the service industry, gig work, and other unstable positions where workers often lived paycheck to paycheck. Ultimately, what determined whether a job was considered upper, middle, or lower class came down to one thing: knowledge. What you knew became more valuable than what you could physically do. It wasn't about the ability to run a 10-acre farm or cover 20 miles on foot. It was about being smart enough to solve complex problems, ensuring that the critical cogs in society's machine never broke down. In essence, intelligence became the true service, replacing the previous historical precedent of physical labor. Even agriculture, while still vital, transformed from a labor-intensive pursuit into a field focused on infrastructure and management as machines took over. The story remains fundamentally simple. Jobs began as an exchange of physical labor for survival, standardized through the exchange of value. Over time, as society evolved, work shifted from manual labor to intelligence-based labor. Today, your mind is worth more than your hands. But that raises a crucial question. What happens when machines can replicate intelligence itself? John had his factory job automated long ago, and even you, the doctor, lawyer, or professor who thought you were untouchable, might soon find that the very intellect you relied on is not so special anymore. To understand how AI will take a job, we can't combine the replacement of digital and physical work altogether. So let's first establish a general framework. What defines a job? More specifically, what makes one job different from another, beyond just being primarily physical or digital? Any job can be categorized as either technical or creative, though most fall somewhere on a spectrum, rather than strictly in one category. Here's the framework to evaluate whether a job is primarily technical or creative. Keep in mind, many jobs blend both elements, but they tend to lean more heavily in one direction than the other. To start off, technical jobs are systematic, logic-driven roles that operate within a predefined set of rules. These jobs don't require free-form creativity, but instead rely on analyzing data, recognizing patterns, and making decisions based on structured guidelines. Think lawyers, programmers, accountants. Each of these professions follows a rigid framework. A lawyer studies legal texts and applies established precedents to interpret cases. A programmer reads documentation and writes code according to strict syntax and logic. An accountant follows financial regulations to ensure compliance and accuracy in bookkeeping. At their core, technical jobs are about working within an existing rulebook, whether it's legal codes, programming languages, or financial regulations. The process involves interpreting, iterating, and optimizing rather than inventing something completely new. Because of this structured nature, these jobs are highly susceptible to AI automation, which can process rules, analyze patterns, and execute decisions faster and more accurately than any human ever could. Some would say AI is terrible. AI can't even write the exact code I want. We'll discuss this soon. Unlike technical jobs, creative jobs thrive on originality, intuition, and subjective decision-making. These roles are less about following a rigid rulebook and more about generating new ideas, evoking emotions, and crafting unique experiences. Think writers, artists, musicians, designers, filmmakers, and content creators. They don't just interpret or iterate, they invent, experiment, and express. A writer constructs narratives and conveys meaning through language. A musician arranges sounds to provoke emotion. A designer balances aesthetics and function to create visual appeal. While technical jobs rely on strict logic, creative work is often open-ended, ambiguous, and deeply human-centric. However, even creativity has patterns. Art follows composition principles, music adheres to structure, and writing has common tropes and styles. AI's growing ability to analyze, mimic, and generate creative works challenges the assumption that creativity is untouchable. In the same way, technical work can be automated through rule following. AI models trained on vast amounts of creative content can generate music, scripts, paintings, and designs, sometimes indistinguishable from human-made works. The question isn't whether AI can replace creative jobs. It's how much of creativity is truly unpredictable, and how much of it is just pattern recognition dressed as inspiration. As expected, digital jobs are the first to face the flames. But even within the digital landscape, jobs fall into two broad categories: technical or creative. Understanding this distinction helps frame how AI will take over each field. Let's start with technical jobs. Take software engineers as an example. From an outsider's perspective, it might seem like all they do is learn a few programming languages, get hired, and solve assigned tasks. But their job goes deeper. It involves problem solving, debugging, optimizing code, and sometimes designing entire systems. However, at its core, it's still a technical job, because every problem they solve is based on logical frameworks. They work within the bounds of programming languages, existing architectures, and structured methodologies. If the core of the job is simply to learn hard-coded rules, apply them to a given problem, and repeat, AI is already doing this. I don't need to explain how good AI coding has become. You've probably seen it firsthand. But let's look at the bigger picture. The AI coding models you interact with, like GPT-4o, may seem impressive, but they don't even rank in the top 1,000 coders worldwide. That's nothing. But OpenAI's o3 model, not the free, stripped-down versions, is an entirely different beast. It has reached a Codeforce's rating of 2,227, which ranks among the top 200 human programmers globally, 178th to be exact. To put that in perspective, GPT 3.5, released in 2022, had a rating of 0. It couldn't even solve basic coding problems. The following year, GPT-4 reached a rating of 392, making it barely functional for competitive programming. In 2024, GPT-4o made a noticeable leap to 808, though it still lagged behind average human competitors. However, by late 2024 and into 2025, o3 surged to a staggering 2,227, outperforming 99.8% of all human coders, equivalent to an International Olympiad in Informatics gold medalist, which is basically the Olympics for nerds. For context, the highest Codeforce's rating currently belongs to a coder known as Tourist, who holds an impressive 3,856. He was so dominant that a new league had to be created just for those who surpassed the 3,000 rating mark. Garry Kasparov had his deep blue moment in chess when he became the first world champion in history to be defeated by a machine. Will tourists soon have the AGI moment in coding, when the best human coder can no longer compete with the best machine? What is the irony in the creation defeating the creators in their own game? And it's not just OpenAI. DeepSeek R1, an open-source model, is already hitting a rating of 2,029, making it more than capable of competing with mid-tier professional programmers. The trajectory is clear. AI coding models have gone from barely functional to elite-level performance in just 3 years. The next iteration, o4, expected to surpass a 3,000 rating, will likely outperform all but the top 0.1% of human coders. Maybe Tourist has a year or two left, if that. What does this mean? The vast majority of programmers aren't irreplaceable. AI is no longer just automating basic coding. It's tackling complex algorithmic reasoning, optimizing large-scale systems, and even outpacing human competitors in elite programming challenges. If AI can already outperform 99.8% of coders, what happens when it reaches the top 0.1%? At the current rate of progress, even a slight improvement could send shockwaves through the industry. If AI keeps accelerating like this, the waters won't just be disturbed, they'll be overturned.
The industry is already shifting. AI-assisted programming tools are now handling over 30% of enterprise code maintenance. Platforms like Codeforces have reported a 40% increase in AI-assisted submissions. In other words, AI isn't assisting coders anymore, it's competing with them. The idea that software engineers will always be needed is not a fact. It's a temporary illusion. Just like factory workers thought automation would assist them rather than replace them, programmers are repeating the same mistake. They don't realize they're coping simply because of the ego derived from the belief that they are doing something no one else can, or that it is too much of their identity for it to just get thrown to the wayside by some AI machine out of nowhere. Whether you like it or not, data should be taken literally, not interpreted through wishful thinking or bias. AI coding models started at a rating of practically 0 in 2022, which is essentially useless. By 2025, O3 reached a rating of 2,227, outperforming 99.8% of human programmers. Compute costs are trending downward as AI efficiency improves. To claim AI won't improve further or that costs won't drop is pure denial. Progress has hit a wall, but not the wall you're thinking of. The only rational move is to position before the wave, not after it.